Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion on item 19? Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Peter. All in favor of approving the settlements? Aye. Any opposed? No. Great. Thank you. All right, we're out of executive session and continuing with the regular meeting. Items 2, 3, 4, and 5 are tabled at request of sponsor. Should we take 10? Is that what we're saying? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
We're executive. Let's take item 6, Dennis's item.
Yep, just asked to move this. This is an open space initiative. It's already been something that's been done in Bethlehem. It's successful there. I know the town board, Gillen, supports it, so just asked to move it.
Great.
Motion.
Thank you. Second? Is that Mr. Kuhn? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Great. Thank you very much, Dennis. Okay, 7 is tabled at request of sponsor. 8 and 9 are tabled pending public hearing. Item 10, public hearing on local law H, the tax exemption. Legislator Rosano.
This is amending law, local law 8 from 1997. I hope those are the correct numbers. And basically, it's granting a partial exemption of real property owned by persons with limited income who are disabled in accordance with provisions of the real property tax law. And basically, it's for people who are receiving SSI or disability benefits. The money's amount, the percentages amount remain the same from the law that the local law we amended last session. And basically, everything is pretty much the same as in that resolution. So I would like to have this presented to the legislative body, and hopefully it will be passed.
Great. Is there a motion? Any questions?
Quick question, honey. You said this is the same as what we
No,
did.
it's
What is changing?
She's referring to the senior tax exemption
Right.
that was passed last month.
it wasn't the same, it was the monies that were the same, the allowance, the $50,000 and there on down. If you make $50,000 or less, $50,000.
Yep.
less
So the
than
brackets are
51.
the same.
Are all the same as in the
The
senior.
percentage.
It's titrated,
Those are set.
it's titrated
Yep,
down.
it's all set by New York State. This is just us opting into
Right,
it.
but this is for people who are receiving disability benefits and SSI benefits. And that disability has to be determined by the Social Security Administration through SSI or their disability component, or the railroad retirement disability.
Does this apply to people who are just generally low income if they're not on SSI disability?
You have to be able to prove
PSA.
your disability.
Right.
So, no, it only applies to people who are of
Who are
low income
certi-
if they are
cer-
disabled.
If they're
And-
certified.
No, they don't have to be certified. They have
have to
to,
be.
pursuant to the required proof, section 5, they have to
Okay.
have an award letter from SSI or SSA or from the Railroad Retirement Board. They have to be able to prove that they are disabled.
Right, or from the.
But there is no
For the
certification of
commission,
any
is
sort.
it visually handicapped or blind?
Okay. So basically, it's an SSI certification for most people.
Well, it's an
Or
award letter.
disability.
Award. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Peters, second by Mr.
And we would note, before it gets officially voted on, the date in the public hearing should actually be the 29th, not the 22nd.
We need to-
So, it doesn't agree.
Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Great, thank you. Passes unanimously. Item 12, table at request of sponsor. 13, table pending public hearing. 14 through 17 are tabled at request of sponsor. This brings us to item 11. And Mr. Bergdorf is here on that. I'm okay going a few minutes over our meeting time, but not very many, which is why I was trying to rush things along to give you a
Okay,
little.
well, I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version of what we did last night. I'm sorry that Mike McLaughlin isn't here. I guess I'll have to summarize what my discussions have been with him. My legislation would ask the county executive to mine data from county departments having to do with any increase in programs that deal with, may deal with migrant homelessness, etc. I realize that not every category can be completely filled out from the existing database which exists. And so we've inserted into the text language that says a good faith effort by the county executive will deem to be satisfactory. I need to start a little bit with and which Mike McLaughlin said was fine with him. His only concern was that he didn't want anybody coming back to him and saying, you didn't give us all these things that you said you asked for. And we may not by law be able to give them to you, or the information may not be readily available. I said, I understand that. The county executive has been the only one who has gone to bat for the local communities, and he has been honest and transparent in everything that he has done. So I take them at their word for their good faith efforts to try to provide this information. I want to try to demonstrate why
Paul, I just want to let you know, I want to limit you to like another 3 minutes or so before we get to other people to raise it, because that will already be
You know
past
something,
6:30.
Madam Chairwoman, to be the only person here and to be given 4 minutes to discuss a complex piece of legislation is really insufficient. I will do the best I can.
Well, the legislation was tabled, we're just looking at the resolution, right?
Yeah, we're just doing the resolution.
Yeah, we're on the resolution.
Okay.
I tabled the legislation. This is all about data gathering and
Yeah.
why it's important,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Okay.
And there are reasons why it's important. First thing is, New York City is not going to stop their outsourcing of their homeless programs. Quote from the mayor, I told everyone last year, this migrant crisis is coming to a neighborhood near you. That day has arrived. It's going to come to everyone's neighborhood. People need to focus their attention to Washington, D.C. A national problem should be a national solution. It should not be New York City's solution. The mayor is handing out flyers at the border saying, do not come to New York City anymore. We are saturated. What is happening is in New York City, they are getting 13,500 migrants a month going through the Roosevelt Hotel check-in station. That's about 150,000 a year. When we started with the migrant crisis in Albany County, I don't want to say migrant crisis, the whole issue of housing folks and where they go and who takes care of them and who pays. We started on Memorial Day weekend with 25 people in Colony and about 75 people in the city of Albany. There are now about 600 migrants or homeless. We don't know what they are. We don't have no idea what the city has sent us in terms of who the people are. We have no idea. It appears that there are other municipalities has some information, but I'm told that we don't have that. So what's going to happen is you're going to get 150,000 people in New York City, and New York City is totally saturated. Every migrant that comes in now is going to roll off someplace else. And so that means, I don't know, you tell me what it means. Where's the mayor going to put these people? Well, he started, something dramatic happened this week where the city of Albany, and I know you've all seen the press, had rented a fully vacant hotel in Schenectady County. Threw out everybody in the hotel, including social service residents who were placed there by Schenectady County, didn't tell Schenectady County anything about it, threw out their social service people to the curb, and brought in, I think it's 200 people, including families. We've also come to find out, and I read in Tuesday's paper, nobody has told us, that our residents in the Sure Stay have gone from 24 residents now to well over probably 125 residents, with as many as half of them, or more than half of them, being children. So all of a sudden now, we have a new element here. We have children injected into the mix that are now going to require services of a school district. And it happens to be, if Shore State is used as the base, it's going to be the North Colony School District. They don't have the correct amount of English as a second language teachers.
All right, point of order. You've been going on for 6 minutes. Are we gonna discuss this, or are you gonna?
Well,
Let's go. You have 5 minutes to discuss it. Let's talk about it,
Excuse me,
okay?
Madam Chairwoman, aren't you running this meeting?
I like to give voice to as many people as I can. I have given you more than the time. We
Okay,
are
I'll-
At the,
I will skim through this. We have 600 migrants. We've got kids in the school system, and New York City has just put a 60-day limit on their own homeless program.
so your resolution, Mr. Bergdorf, is
Yes.
asking hoteliers.
No, you're on the
Oh,
wrong
that's the
topic.
local law, sorry,
No,
my apologies. No, this is asking for
This is
data
asking the county executive.
that they don't have.
What do you
Right?
mean they don't have? Mike McLaughlin says he can give us data.
Do you put that in
Actually, to
writing?
be clear, Mike McLaughlin, to summarize from last night, Mike McLaughlin indicated that our programs actually cannot differentiate between statuses or types of people. So the exec department can actually only provide our current benefit roles for any given program. So that's actually already available to any legislator. You could have asked for that at any point.
Okay,
So
but now
any-
I'm gonna tell you
but
what
thank
you told me.
If you could just let me finish speaking.
Well, no, you
Um,
kind of cut me off.
Well-
I was in the middle of saying what Mike McLaughlin said to me.
And that's
you
absolutely
wrote-
publicly available, we have
Yes,
that?
it's publicly.
Like he.
Yes,
Yes,
it can be
he
given
says
to any
it's publicly
legislator.
No, no, I'm
available.
saying Mike McLaughlin sent you a letter that you shared with us?
No, he
Okay.
got up
Alright.
and said it at the social service
Which
committee meeting
we
last
weren't
night.
there and.
And so I'm summarizing for the committee.
Thank you.
He also indicated that any attempt to extrapolate from those numbers, the base benefit roll numbers, about any potential increases would be purely speculative and conjecture because we cannot possibly know, since they do not break down by types or statuses, what those numbers entail.
And I just want
It
to
could
note
be
that that's not what
homeless
Mr.
people.
Bergdorf just told us.
No,
So I'm happy
what-
for that cover. No, hold on.
Can I tell you what he, you
All
didn't
right,
get, you didn't let me
let's
finish.
not-
what
You
he
actually
told me.
said, he said it was no problem, don't worry, they'll make it work. That's very different than what our
I
project
didn't
was.
Hold
say
on,
that.
can we both stop? Mr. Bergdorf, why don't you
He
summarize
actually said
how
it's too
you
bad Mike
understand?
McLaughlin's not here,
Mr.
is what he
McLaughlin.
said. Where
Actually-
is Mike McLaughlin, actually? Why
That's
isn't
all right.
he here?
Michael's been
How
the
about
only one who has been helpful in this entire process. There's no one
So
here
why don't you just summarize what your understanding is of what I
Okay.
told you about the data?
that he could track every program under the NUMIS system or whatever it is, on any given day, he can tell what the expenditures are, how it compared to that time last year, how it compared to the month before, so we can see trends in any program. SNAP, TANF, all these things.
But not the number of people who are,
We
what
can-
not the, what not the.
Excuse me, Mr. Peter.
They may not,
Mr.
he
Bergdorf.
may not be able to break down who, that number is derived from migrants or homeless. He can help us track the programs.
Well, they
And-
do that anyway.
Excuse
So,
me, we haven't
they
gotten
can't.
to the point of why this is important.
Still?
Please.
Yes, still, Jeff.
All right,
Because
no
nobody, if you
personal-
can tell me, when everybody here, when do we as a county own them for purposes
Never.
of social
We
services?
don't.
They become clients of the county. People have said it's 90 days, people have said it's 120 days, people have said it's 180 days, and now the mayor is saying that he's cutting him off in the city after 60 days.
So is this homeless people, migrants, asylum seekers, or what? 'Cause you.
These are people who are migrants under the city homeless program, single males. He's cutting them off after 60 days.
So that's not everyone, because you mentioned children.
Excuse me?
You had previously mentioned children, so that's.
That's not, but this, Nobody can tell us at what point in time are these 600 people, if they have not, it's my hope that all 600 of them find work and are integrated into society and can pull their own weight.
Can I ask you a question?
So,
Just
Mr.
something that you
Bergdorf,
said.
how would this resolution
Accomplish that?
accomplish anything? to do
Because
that?
by reporting at 90 days, 120 days, 150 days, and 180 days, and then after that quarterly, you will see when various, if there are, I would love for you to come back to me after looking at this data and say, nothing jumped.
So the data, they don't need to do anything differently than, we already have this data available, and we can look at it. 90
We'd like it to be a report.
But, Madam Chair?
Yes,
But from a pure data standpoint, let's say 70 homeless people, because you, homeless, whatever,
Yeah.
come from Washington County to us, and after a certain expiration, they become to us. You would say it's the migrants, but it could be someone from Washington County. Right?
It could be
So
anybody.
therefore,
And what I'm saying is for
Hold on,
budget,
hold on.
for
Hold on, wait, wait,
budgetary
Can we do
purposes.
regular order?
yeah,
Still
let's slow
talking.
this down.
So all I'm simply saying, right, to come back to this, is just like there's been several jumps in trends, right? For example, during the opioid crisis, we saw massive jumps. If 200 immigrants came from New York City and we saw a jump in mental services, you would say it's the immigrants, not the people from rural, something like that. For the opioids, I'm saying you could say it, right? I'm not saying you are. I'm saying you could because there's no specifications in the data division based on what those individuals' statuses are,
Maddox, you're a budget guy.
right?
I am finding it deeply disappointing that my majority colleagues I thought we'd end up with 39 co-sponsors on this because everybody
We went to
would
a press
want.
release
All
30
right,
minutes
stop.
after we saw it.
Quiet.
A partisan press
Now.
release 30 minutes
Now,
after we saw it.
I said both of you, quiet, Mr. Kuhn.
Okay. First of all, the idea that you were gonna have 39 co-sponsors on this,
Okay.
that's dishonest. You've got these barbed partisan statements in here.
Like?
I don't,
Like what?
like what? The federal government in the United States ceased enforcing the
That's
borders.
not what we're
Why
acting
don't-
on today.
Paul,
No, it's right here.
No,
Stop
it's-
interrupting
It's
me.
really right here in the whereas of your resolution.
Isn't that deleted?
No.
It is
not
now
in the packet.
blocked, it's
But
bracketed
it's-
out.
that's
it's
what
all
else-
deleted.
That's what went out to the press, right?
This,
The-
that
the
was a month
bipartisan-
ago.
All right,
That was
excuse
a
me,
month
Mr.
ago.
Kuhn has the floor.
I'm just looking at what I
But
have.
he's not looking at the right thing. He's not looking at what I'm asking you to pass. So if you're going to question me,
Mr. Bergdorf.
question me
All right,
on
point
what
taken.
I am trying to pass.
Point taken.
Okay,
Mr. Kuhn.
so is the statement about whereas the federal government of the United States
It's all gone.
invoked
It's all
its.
on the website.
He put a number of inflammatory statements in the whereas and then removed them just prior to this meeting, yes.
No, not just prior to this
Within
meeting.
the last week, yes.
Last Friday, we sent it over to you.
Yes, within the last.
Okay? After me having a discussion with Dennis and Andrew, saying, would it be possible to get together with your councils to see if we can work out a agreed to version of this, taking out any language that's offensive.
That's
I
not
think
what was
even-
conveyed to me, as being one of those councils that you were referring to. I did speak with Arnis, and I told him a number of things that were objectionable, and he disagreed with them, and then he hung up. So I don't know what it was you were hoping to get out of that conversation, but I
I
told him.
was hoping to have a meeting with you, Arnis, Pat, and Mike McLaughlin, so that Mike could tell you what he told me.
And
we
he
could-
did.
And we could figure out a way to get this information and go forward.
Ms. Cunningham.
First off, your entire sort of entry into this, your first 4 or 5 minutes, was criticizing a policy in an entirely different jurisdiction that we have no control over. So it seems like your intent here and what is really bothering you, that you're trying to, through this, get at,
No,
is the
no.
fact that, well, you spent like 5 minutes
Well,
talking
you see,
about
but
New
everybody
York City.
can't-
Excuse me.
Let's let her finish.
Waving around news articles and yada yada. So if you are trying to say, oh, this is just a data project, you spent 5 minutes talking about how you disagree with the policy of an entirely different jurisdiction.
Well, I absolutely do
So-
disagree with what New York City is
I
doing.
get it, but that doesn't speak well to your contemplation that
But
this
we're-
is some
this
data
is-
project that we should all get behind.
This is
It's
dealing
not.
with
Paul,
the
can
hand
people
that we
finish a
have been
damn
dealt.
Oh,
sentence?
Yeah.
Can you let people finish, for God's sake? So that's one thing, and that is dishonest. I mean, that is exactly what Jeff said. This is framed as a dog whistle. And taking out the first whereas clause is really not gonna do a damn thing. I mean, you frame this as, we hate this policy, it's causing us issues, and 5 more minutes on why we hate this policy, and let's get a look at the data. The other thing is, the data is one moment in time that is not really going to tell you anything other than aggregate numbers, not understanding contextually what's behind that. It's also not going to tell you how many of the folks, the refugees did get work, that are out of this housing situation, that are living with some relatives, that are living with families that wanted to accept them. So it's also kind of a weak data project in that sense. So I think that it's tainted by this language. It's tainted by your articulation of this other jurisdiction's policy that you fundamentally disagree with. I understand that. And I also think it doesn't really, it's not really going to tell you what you want to know. It's going to make a political statement that you want to make. That's how
May
I
I,
Mr.
may I
Peter?
respond to that, or am I allowed to respond?
I'd like Mr. Peter to, because we're not, clearly not developing a consensus here this evening.
No, we're not.
So, Mr. Peter.
So on a data point, I have 2 issues with it, and that's why, and I'll go with everything else. So I'm gonna ignore, I understand what everyone's saying, fine. 2 things, and I think we talked about it before, right? You can't, just because something looks like something doesn't mean it is something. And what this does is sets up what I consider a biased data collection. What I would like to see actually happen, because I actually think there are, while I disagree with how you went around it, data trend analysis of social services and different trends coming out is actually very important. I would actually completely agree with it. What you are doing is what I consider data mining by policy, where you're pre-assuming something. So for example, there's 2 major problems with this, right? We can say that, okay, there's 200 migrants, right? And after 90 days, therefore X. But it may not be X, right? It actually might be Y, because we're not taking in the larger picture. So that's one. So now, what I would personally like to see, and I'm happy to work with you and with DSS and with that, is to actually look at our larger mental health, social services, and things like that. Because my guess is the opioid epidemic, the mental health crisis, and stuff like that are actually much more of a risk to our fiscal health and long-term fiscal planning than anything described here. And then the second part of it is it's a little cherry picking, because when it comes to, since we assume that everyone is all lumped together, you have things like people with visas and green cards, right? They're never going to go to DSS, right? Because if they potentially may not go to DSS, right? So other people who come here, you're not reporting on the successes. So there's not a wide breadth to say, okay, 300 people came here, 50 people ended up on our services, 100 people didn't, and 50 people left. There's no picture there. All it is whatever narrative you're putting in there. There's no honest data in this. And that's why I'm
Way to
voting
get
no.
that data.
How are we going to prepare a budget? First of all, I resent
I think,
resent the political allegations. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to leave it at that. I have never taken a position one way or another on the migrant crisis. All I've said is we have to deal with the hand that we are dealt. And this isn't going to stop for the next at least 2.5 years. People are going to be coming and coming and coming.
I was on the Mayflower, my folks, so.
And I believe that we as legislators are abdicating our governmental and fiscal integrity by not making an effort to determine what this is going to cost so we can deal with these human beings effectively.
but if.
Okay, so I would like to draw this to a conclusion.
Why don't you
because I
just go
think-
and do what you're
Because
going
I
to
think
do?
we're just not gonna reach a consensus
Okay.
tonight. So we can keep talking for another hour,
Wait,
but
can
I
I
don't
ask a
think that's
question?
gonna solve, no, actually, right now, we're more than 15 minutes past. So can you give it really short?
Yeah, I just have a question. When these people arrive, maybe I missed it in the press, but when these folks are coming in buses to hotels, is anyone from the county going to greet them or taking their names and helping them, giving them
I don't know how the
blankets? Like,
process
are we
works.
doing anything in social services to meet and greet these people? Or no? Like, what's your understanding of
It's not
of the
proper.
meet and greet process?
I
It's just
believe
the
it's not
hotel
proper.
guy that's making a fortune on, you know, extending.
Mr. Peter says he believes it's nonprofits. I don't think we
Yeah,
have.
I think it's like Rise and other places that are
Yeah.
helping them get settled. It's nonprofits and.
And
.gov
and
is
then
a
when-
for-profit,
And then when do
okay?
they,
They're the facilitator.
But just,
And then there are multiple agencies.
so then when do they end up coming through our offices?
to Mr. Bergdorf's point, and also.
We don't know.
But there's also, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Does anybody know?
We're not gonna be able to reach a conclusion on this evening, except either move it with a negative recommendation or table
I-
it. So how,
Who's the social services head of social services?
Sam
Commissioner
Fine.
McClave.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the chair.
Oh, Commissioner McClave.
Oh, what does that commissioner think of this?
actually, no, no more discussion, I'm done. We're
Madam
well
Chair.
we're well over time here.
I make a motion with a negative. To move
Is there a
forward.
second? Second by Mr. Kuhn. All in favor
What's the motion I didn't hear?
for a negative recommendation?
To move.
Oh,
How many ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
no. I wanna see it.
No. Mr. Berger, did you vote?
I think it's on.
You asked for an aye. Did you ask for
Yeah, I
nays?
asked for the nays, asked for that, sir.
Nay.
Okay, thank you.
We can't
So
make a
that's
motion to
17.
table this.
So is this the last thing we have?
This was, yes.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Can I just tell you, you know I tabled the other thing.
Yes.
I did that as a result of a conversation with Mike McLaughlin, who gave us some much better ideas on how to accomplish those notification tasks. And we hope to be in a position to share that with you shortly, so that if you have questions or issues with that, maybe we could do them in a timely manner, so we're not